right. It's windy, which is good because it's pretty warm in here. Kelly Thomas was a homeless man who was beaten to death in California. And I've only gotten a minute and 43 seconds into it. As somebody who has been abused by police and had their intimidation and harassment tactics used against, I can tell you that right from the very start, Kelly Thomas is afraid to do anything. The reason for that is because that officer is swinging that stick around using a harsh tone. It's the swinging of that stick around and the shaking it that shows you that that officer is already aggressive. He is already taking an aggressive stance, and he is already pulling and utilizing intimidation tactics that are specifically taught not to be used. These officers are doing things that they are taught specifically not to do to the disabled. And specifically, you shouldn't do these things to anyone. These are intimidation tactics. These are bullying tactics. And if the intimidation and bullying tactics don't work, then there's always the assault and the playing victim. They're taught how to do this. Where one officer grabs a hold of one arm and one officer grabs a hold of the other, you're already in cuffs. One of them yanks you this way or puts his foot in front of yours, and you stumble forward, and they don't catch your feet on the body camera now, do they? Of course they don't. And they slam you to the ground, try to break your arm while it's in the cuffs, and turn them sideways. I still have scars on the side of my wrist from when they did that to me. They turn the cuffs sideways. It's too narrow to go from here to here on those handcuffs. When they turn it sideways, it is excruciating no matter who you are. And officers in many of these situations walked around and looked for pressure points that would work on me because I'm autistic. I've got a higher pain threshold. When the officer in Longmont, Colorado assaulted me, he walked around and tried a few pressure points in that hospital. This is what happens when you try to turn in officers. When they say, all right, well, we're going to take you somewhere safe and we'll take your report when we get there. And then they all fucking ditch and they lock the goddamn door on you. That is what happens when you, as a homeless person or a disabled person, are trained to be dealt with by police. And it doesn't help that most medical staff in America assume you are a junkie if you come in when you're homeless. Many homeless people can attest to this. You go in, a lot of times they just want to tell you, all right, well, we'll give you a prescription for your drug your choice. Just to get you out of here, we will give you a prescription. You want opiates, we'll prescribe you opiates. You want Ritalin, you want to go snort fucking heroin or fucking pills or whatever with whoever, fine, we'll give you the prescription. Now, do they tell you it like that? No, it is their body language and their behavior towards you. You are not welcome. My back pain is excruciating, but I know what happens to people who take opiates. I've seen it my entire life. I've seen what happens when people take those things. You know, heroin didn't hit real big in Boulder until 2003. The juggalos came in and fucking thrashed everything. They brought in so much cheap heroin, and now look at Boulder. They're locking up potheads. They're locking up homeless people. They're locking up disabled people, but they're leaving the heroin heads alone. They're leaving the heroin dealers alone. They're leaving the meth dealers alone. It's because the homeless are excellent fucking revenue, 81% nationwide. Now, the mentally ill treatment. Kelly Thomas isn't the only one who's treated this way. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get further in this video. I'm asking you guys to watch it, but I'm going to have to tell you, it comes with a trigger warning. These officers are trained specifically to bully the homeless nationwide for revenue, to ignore crimes and refuse to take reports from the homeless. Most of our victimization, now keep in mind that the statistics show that the homeless have more hate crimes against them than all other hate crimes combined. And that's not counting police interaction. Why are the homeless third on the list? Because foster children are abused, first of all, before they even get into the foster care system in many cases. And then in the foster care system, they are repeatedly abused. And these children have no representation. And former foster kids are second on the list because they comprise of obviously all foster kids and also homeless people. This is where you end up when you age out of the system, is homeless. So you're that statistic too. A lot of minorities are in the system as children and they get dropped off at 18. They don't know nothing about the world. They don't know how to drive. They don't got an ID. They ain't got nothing to live on. No money, no nothing. Just clothes on their backs. Fucking flies, I hate them. And a lot of them ended up disabled, ended up with PTSD from growing up in the system, growing up as foster children, being raped. But they also fit other categories. That's why they're number 2 on the list. See, you can be homeless and be a child. There are many runaways in the system. There are, according to some statistics, 18,000 children a year that disappear from child care. 18,000, that's a lot. We've got 5 children a day on average dying in foster care or in the foster care system. All of it CPS controlled. We've got parents being victimized, what other parents did. And the homeless, they comprise such a small portion of our society. According to some numbers, 0.2% of our population, not even 1%, are victimized more than all Black folks. All Native Americans are murdered by police more than all Black folks and all Native Americans put together, as well as all other minorities put together. The homeless are killed ×5, so their statistics go into that as well. There's not just homeless adults, there's also homeless kids. A lot of the homeless women that I knew in Boulder, they get raped, some of them 3-4 times a month. But they're so desperate to get off the streets that they get into those situations. People do that to yourself. Don't get into that situation. But then they end up with someone who's an abuser on the streets, and that's not any better. Except that abuser on the streets is going to scare off other abusers. When you're alone as a woman, as a homeless woman, people will rape you thinking they can get away with it. Just like serial killers going out and finding prostitutes and homeless people to kill. Are most people killed by serial killers people in houses? Or are most of them prostitutes and homeless people? How many of those prostitutes were forced into that to begin with? But nobody cares. I care. I helped Desiree get out of that trap house across the street from the Camilla shelter in Cheyenne, Wyoming, not once, twice. One of those times after she'd stolen everything from me. I got the name of the dude, and I've released it here on YouTube for everyone to hear and everyone to see. There's got to be a way that we can force these officers to wear body cameras at all times and have civil rights lawyers review these things. We need civil rights lawyers now more than anything, especially for the homeless, especially for the disabled. These are the most victimized people in America. There are more hate crimes against the homeless than all other hate crimes combined in the United States. Times 5, and that is not including police interaction. How many of these situations with the police went unreported? Because that number that I chose, 502, out of all the statistics that I read, some of them went up over 2,000. Over 2,000 people killed by the police. But also some of those numbers show that over 1,000 disabled people were killed by the police. And that depends, because some of these are independent studies where they weren't able to find all of the people who were killed by police, and many agencies do not keep a record of the homeless or disabled who were killed, or rather, most people who were killed by the police. They don't keep those statistics. Why not? They do keep those statistics. When they say that they don't keep those statistics, they're lying. Anybody dumb enough to believe that doesn't understand how that works. They want those numbers. They want to know those numbers, what works and what doesn't. Why would they want to keep numbers like that? Why would they want to preserve numbers like that for the future? Statistics. Because it makes them a lot of money. And it allows people who are frustrated, a victim class. Everyone knows that they can take it out on the homeless, and everyone knows they can take it out on the disabled. All you have to do is call them mentally ill to discredit them, and you can do whatever you want. You pretend like mentally ill means schizophrenic. And then the police, they ask for these doctors to give you these injections. They ask for these doctors and nurses to give you specifics, and those doctors and nurses comply. These officers do not have the right to make medical decisions for you. And in the case that an officer has abused you and you are trying to turn that officer in, and that officer gets to take you to a hospital and abuse you at the hospital and get away with it because of what they tell the hospital staff and the assumptions of the hospital staff, that they work closely with the hospital staff. Yes, when this officer brings in an accident victim, but is that officer really? No. The EMTs are doing that. And these hospital staff go, oh, well, he was doing the job he was paid for. He must be a nice guy because he's doing that job. No, he's getting paid for it. And when he's frustrated, he goes out and he finds someone to take advantage of, just like college students at CU. Even groups of black CU students will go down and find a homeless person. They do something that's called hobo bashing. So you and your friends go down and you find a homeless person to start shit with and beat up. Just for the entertainment of it, like you're playing poker or chess. Oh, chess is only a two-person game. And you can hear him screaming and shouting, yeah, get him, kick him in the head. Beat that white boy's ass. Holy fuck. I remember being in the system when I was winning a fight against a black kid. I remember they got something called the black card. Anybody who knows what that is, I'm sorry. That's where, yeah, you can't get punked by the white boy. You get to hear that so much. Don't get punked by the white boy. Taking away your black card means that you might as well be white. The other minorities, not just the black folks, but none of the minorities in that facility are going to treat you correct again. Plus, that white boy gets a little bit of respect. So that white boy now gets treated better than you do because he beats your ass. But you're in the system and nobody cares. You got to earn your respect. And sometimes that does mean beating some ass. And sometimes it takes getting an ass beaten. I remember listening to that and knowing how it works and losing fights intentionally because I didn't want that kid to lose his black card. Besides that, if I put up enough of a fight to make it so that he's out of breath and I'm out of breath, I must still get some respect to fight, despite the fact that I lost. You'd hear him say, yeah, white boy's got some heart. What does that count for? A little bit less ass beatings, a little more respect, a little less bullying, a couple more friends even, and a little bit of protection. This is a system we grow up in just to be thrown out on the streets. It ain't easy. I was planning on looking up a bunch of different stuff on here and posting it all up, but I just ended up going on a rant. And this video's getting pretty long. I know it's only 17 minutes, but I'm pretty exhausted. I was up pretty late. Woke up pretty early compared to how late I was up. I'm barely conscious, so I gotta let y'all go. Be safe. Please help us. Please help to get civil rights lawyers in every courtroom. Even if we have to pay for it ourselves.